Hey everyone, welcome to Passive Play. So we have Reasonable Doubt Season 1, Episode 8, titled Song Cry, currently streaming on Hulu. And I can honestly say I was not ready for this episode. It's like every time you turn, there was something new, something coming up, something, an argument, somebody doing something. It was just like drama. Last episode was like sex, 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 and then this episode had like just kind of whiplash of just drama. Every like other scene, every scene, it was like something new coming, and it felt like a Tyler Perry episode with all the drama here. A really good episode, and they do have a writer's room, and it's not just one person doing it. No shade, but it is what it is, and let's just call this episode, Reasonable Clout, brought to you by Tyler Perry Studios, but it's not. It's on Hulu. And you know what? They dropping some real knowledge. All skin folk and kinfolk. Chanel the friend, telling Jax you push people away. The people who know you best because you don't like to be seen. And I think that's very true. Again, I said it in a previous review that, Jax, when people, try to tell her about herself or, they kind of call her out on her stuff, she goes into lawyer mode. She just starts attacking people, and, they'll just kind of back off because, it's like she attacks you, but yet she feels attacked. She's done it with Lewis. She's done it with, her mom, Mama Lou. She's done it with other characters. And, you can't always win the argument. Sometimes you have to let other people lead and you have to follow. Sometimes you have to take advice rather and not always be the one giving it. And, to me, this episode is really about, dealing with your trauma, how trauma, can affect you. If you don't deal with it, it deals with you. And I think, she's been avoiding, this whole Paul thing for a long time. But again, I really do like this episode, like the previous episode when they showed us kind of what happened with her and Damon. They're showing us and they're not just telling us anymore. And this is finally the episode where we get to go back and see what the heck happened between her and Paul, her stepdad. Why is she, why has she been kind of, been given the inkling that like everything in on the up and up, and just, there's just some bad feelings between her and more, on her side. But he's just like, I was drunk and I did some things I'm not proud of, but it was the alcohol, it was not me. And in this episode though, you got some people, they doing some more shady things. You got Theo throwing Braden under the bus, you got Jax throwing Sarah under the bus, but they both foul people. So honestly, I ain't even mad. But let's get into the rest of this episode. All right, so we open up in Los Angeles, 1996, with Jax as a teenager. She's 16 years old, skateboarding with her Walkman, shout out to tape cassettes, and she's riding the bus, And she comes home to Mama Lou and Paul, who actually seems decent at first. He seems nice. He's like, we don't have that much money, but I'm gonna save some money to, get you some kind of, maybe like a cheaper, some kind of cheap car. But, that way when you go see your friends who got more money out in the nicer LA, whatever, you can drive and you ain't got to be riding on the bus late at night or waiting for them to come and pick you up and me drop you off, whatever. And then we have this first incident when Jax, he's, hugging Paul, and they're basically hugging each other goodbye, and Paul hand grazes over her one of her breasts, and that's kind of like the first incident. And he is a little bit drunk, and Mama Lou did let him drive her, when he was clearly tipsy. Don't know why she did, but she did anyway. And he grazes her breast in this first kind of incident that she kind of really recalls. And he just kind of goes, he kind of pulls back and just gets ready to drive off. And it just kind of seems like it's an accident, and she kind of just kind of lets it go. And then we have a second incident where. Um, Paul comes kind of barging into the bathroom to get a Q-tip while Jax is naked with a towel on, saying she's taking too long. And, and when, he comes in, she's like, Paul, and he doesn't see her. She is covered up, with the towel, but he almost did see something, and he's like, ain't no one looking at you, little girl. And, she probably, she should have locked the door, but he also should have knocked too. Her mom was like, you should lock the door if you don't want nobody coming in here. But I mean, you're still supposed to knock if a door is closed, especially for the bathroom, you're supposed to knock anyway. That's common courtesy, even if it's, especially if it's in your house and you ain't the only one living there, so. And, and then so we have a third incident where Jax is leaving a party. Paul is picking her up and she's walking out and he's like, you have something on your back of her pants. And Paul kind of wipes it off, groping her again. And honestly, this scene, I didn't see anything on her pants. So I'm like, okay, so now we got three incidences. The first one, the first one that they show, you're like, okay, that could have been an accident. He didn't think any of it, he's tipsy. The second one in the bathroom, that was a bit much. He said he had been waiting, whatever, to get a Q-tip. I mean, you can also use a paper towel. That's what my grandma used to do. She used to take a paper towel or a tissue and, twist it up and like stick it in her, whatever. If she didn't have a Q-tip, she used to do that. So I don't know. That second one, but the third one was like, I didn't see anything on her butt. I just saw his hand there. And then we have the fourth incident. Jax is, sleeping in her bed, and drunk Paul comes in and lays in her bed, starts filling her breasts up, Thomas saying, "Oh, you feel so good." And she like, "Get what you doing? She like, what you doing? What you doing?" And he's like, "Oh." And now Paul clearly has a drinking problem, but it doesn't, it's not excusing that behavior. Now it does show that he does apologize to her, and he looks drunk and hungover even in that scene. The very next day, saying he thought she was her mom in their room, and he was drunk. I'm not really buying that. I'm not really buying he was that drunk. He was just acting like he was. There's been plenty of stories where people, they act like, "Oh, I'm drunk, I'm high, I don't know what I'm doing right now." People, that's a very old school game. They ain't doing nothing new there. I'm not really buying that. Um, but Jax tells her mom. Her mom asks Paul to give up the alcohol, and he's like, "No." So Paul leaves. Uh, It doesn't necessarily does he leave on his own, or does Mama Lou tell him to leave, but Mama Lou's trying to defend him to, Jax as a teenager, saying, he's a good man, it was an accident, him getting into your bed, um, and maybe he is a good man when he's not drinking, but when he's drinking, he's creepy as hell, and he can't keep his hands to himself. So honestly, I personally didn't buy it, but those are the only scenes that they showed us. Of course, every scene you could tell that he was drunk or tipsy or a mixture of hungover, but that's still not excusing the behavior. At least he didn't, at least he didn't do more than that. I honestly, the way she was acting, I thought it was more than that, but she clearly had the right to feel the way that she did, and she was uncomfortable. And it's like, yeah, you don't want to be uncomfortable in your own house like that, especially if you're living with somebody like that. So I do understand why she felt that way, and being a mother herself, she wouldn't want, that explains why she don't want her kids over his house. She don't want her daughter over there, right? I don't blame her. I get it. And I appreciate the clarity of them finally showing us what the heck happened. And at this point, she's talking. At one point, she's talking to Chanel, because Chanel was the only person that she told about it when they were kids or during this time. And Chanel's like, I never told anybody, anybody other than just myself, between me and you. And Jax is like, she's basically like, I need to keep this to myself. I can't tell Lewis. I don't know what he may do, which is true. But the whole, I'm keeping my child molester stepfather a secret to keep the family together argument is not really working for me either. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing your kids any favors. You're not doing Lewis any favors. I think that you need to, one, tell him so you can hopefully try to move on from this and heal from it. It seems all these years she hasn't allowed them to be around Paul really unsupervised anyway. But Naima is the youngest child, so she's still, it looks like, so Spencer's probably somewhere between, I don't know, maybe 14 to 15 or something. So Naima's probably, I would say, what, maybe somewhere between 9 and 12, based on, based on how older Spencer is a little bit. So I can understand, it's near around the same age. And it's possible he had been doing stuff like that with Jax, and maybe she just didn't remember. It's just that maybe he upped the ante as far as how consistently he was doing it when she got, 16. Um, and so, I think she needs to tell Lewis, just she needs to get it out beyond to other people other than herself and holding on to this. Her mother, Mama Lou, keeps, like, it's a mistake. He's a good person. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, anything to me past three, especially with something like this, it's probably not an accident. You can slip maybe once or twice, but you talking about, a total of four different times, and this is like, it's too many oops, my bad. And later on in the episode, um she ends up confronting Paul in the hospital, and she asks, was it a mistake, that time that you got in the bed with me, or was it just a mistake that time, or was it a mistake all the times, or was it a mistake you getting caught? And Paul's like, if it's your truth, fine, but it's not mine. Jack says, no, I don't believe you. I think you were grooming me the entire time. And if you try anything with Naima, you're dead. And he dies. Yeah, Paul dies in this episode. Right after she basically gives him that kind of threat, like, and at this point, she's been a lawyer for years. She's dealt with criminals. She's probably dealt with cases like this. And when he gives her that argument, she's like, "Nice speech, but I don't believe you." Honestly, I don't necessarily believe him either. Um, I think he's got a good shtick, and I think that he had been using alcohol probably to maybe cover or try to hide whatever the heck he got going on. Maybe something happened to him and he didn't deal with it and he got corrupted. Who knows that story? At this point, he's dead now, so it's too late to know. So we go back present time, and Lewis is giving Jack some animosity vibes. When she's like, I have to go to court. And Lewis is like, I'm sure you're able to make time for things that are important to you, most likely referring to him when he saw her at the coffee shop, in his car. And, I understand Lewis feeling the type of way, but, you out here sleeping with a threesome hoe who may have used the condom allegedly, and was like, come with me, baby. So and now Jax did have the court pushed back due to the family emergency of Paul, at this point, so I mean, she did do it. She had it pushed back. She didn't have it rescheduled for a different day. Because sometimes I know with court dates, it could be a couple of days, it could be a few weeks, it could be even months before, they can schedule that next date again. So she just had it pushed to later in the day, like, I guess, past lunch or something. And so, And at the end of the day, she don't really care for Paul. She's trying to support her mom. She calls it keeping the family together, as far as she didn't tell her kids and Lewis, about what Paul did to her, but it's just kind of pretenses because she doesn't feel comfortable with her kids with him, especially if Mama Lou or Lewis isn't there, because she don't really want to be around him, and since he's all kind of all in the bed, all sick and weak, he can't really do anything anyway. But either way, we go on and we go. Let's go talk about Braden. So Braden's board of Cloud, the liquor company that he owns. They want Theo to speak for them. Since Braden can't. Because of because of the trial going on. But but they don't want him to anyway. They're basically like, we want Theo to speak and be kind of the more visible face for the company now while you're dealing with this trial. We want you, we want you, and we know you want to do it, but basically we don't want you there because it's just too much negative press. And then Theo, he goes and does an interview on the local station, saying the board has named him interim CEO. And when asked does he believe Braden killed Kalisha, Theo, like, at the end of the day, no one knows what anyone is capable of, which is true. But now what you're supposed to say about your friend of 20 years, since they go back to college and everything, and they've been running this company, for all these years. It's just the shade of it all with Theo, and just leaving Braden out to dry. And Braden is like, Braden's watching this, on TV, and he's like, "What the f was that?" And then Sarah was like, "Well, that was him stealing the company from you on national TV." I mean, basically, I don't even know. It was, um, it's weird. It's like Braden, Braden is like, it's like weird. So he is arrogant. He is kind of, even this episode they say he is a bit of a narcissist, but and he is full of himself. He is arrogant in some ways, but I mean, in some instances, I wouldn't say that he's a complete a. I mean, he is kind of he is an a hole, but there's like this. I don't know. There's a like a naiveness to his character. I guess maybe in regards to his wife, in regards to Theo, in regards to Kalisha. Like in some instances, like there's a naiveness to how he views some of the people around him. Like he's shocked at some of their behavior. Like, I can't believe Theo would do that. I'm like, because Theo ain't your friend. I mean, yeah, Sarah out here doing stuff. He's kind of naive about how some of the people really are around him, even though his character is very flawed himself. So it's just interesting. It's like, so it's just, I don't know. Um, and, Braden wants to take the stand, when this happens. And Jackson's like, no, it's not a good idea if you get on the stand. The prosecution will kind of tear you apart if you do that. And Jax and Rich, the other lawyer, they give Braden this kind of mock trial and start asking him questions, and she kind of rips him to shred. Did you rape Kalisha? And he's like, no, we talked about it and we decided to move on. And she's like, so you, the rapist, decided to move on from the victim feeling like you victimized her? Is that what you're saying? He's like, no, that's not what I meant. And she's like, are you sure you still want to get on the stand? And Jack, she doesn't like under five. She doesn't like within like 2 to 3 minutes. Like, here's the point. You're not. No, you can't get on the stand. If you get on the stand, the prosecution will tear you apart. Let me do your defense and let me do what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And it's great seeing Jackson in court again. Braden's defense continues. Sarah takes the stand first. Prosecution, like, we saw your emails threatening Kalisha before her death. You're a liar. You said you didn't know about the cheating until after she died, but these emails that we found on her laptop show that you did, and you're threatening her. And if you're willing to do that, and you're gonna lie about that, then you could lie about your husband, not being capable of murder. And then Jax is like, do you have any witnesses, that were home with you that night, that Braden went out and said he got ice cream. And, Sarah's like, no, I don't have any witnesses. And she's like, so you don't have any alibi for that night, that Kalisha died? And Sarah's like, no. And she's like, no further questions, Your Honor, because she's using Sarah to cast, some reasonable doubt to the jury. You know, she threw Sarah under the bus, having the jury look at her as a possible, as the possible murder. And again, earlier, Theo throwing Braden under the bus, talking about he's going to be the interim CEO. He talked, Braden had talked to the board before that interview, and they didn't let him know. Theo basically just announced it on national TV, didn't even give Braden a heads up. So, it's a lot of that going on. And then after Sarah, Theo takes the stand, and Jax asks him, was he aware that Kalisha was going to expose him for embezzling funds, from clout and overvaluing clout, for sale to potential buyers. And then Theo, and she kind of pushes, and she's like, you're under oath. And then Theo says that he saw Kalisha on the night that she was murdered. But the cops never asked him, of course. Why would they ask him? And Theo didn't even let the cops know that he had saw her either. And he's like, but I didn't murder her. But you also didn't let the cops know that you were there. You didn't let anybody know. You just kind of let it go. Right. She kind of figured it out. And she's basically like, so she's like, basically, so you have Kalisha, who was planning to let what you were doing out, on what Good Morning America. She's dead, and now you have Braden, who is going to potentially go to jail for murder, and now you're the interim CEO. No more further questions, Your Honor. Again, now casting more reasonable doubt to maybe Theo is the murderer of Kalisha and not Braden. And then last but not least, they have Braden's mom, who comes on the stand and, says, Braden brought her back from the edge of vengeance and anger, when his brother was shot and killed in a drive-by. And, she says that she got a gun, and Braden talked her out of, again, seeking vengeance, and that, violence only begons violence, and they end up, destroying the gun. But she keeps a portion of the gun as a reminder. And, when after Jax was done speaking to Braden's mom, they asked the prosecution, did they have any questions? And they were like, no, Your Honor, because that was a good last witness. It was emotional. She's almost in tears. It shows Braden has character, even though he still cheats on his wife, but whatever. So it was a good way to end the defense of Braden. And then from there, we're going to go on to Damon. At this point, earlier, Jax is on a lunch date with Damon, and she gets a call from Lewis about the kids, and she has to go. Damon is like, I'm tired of all these N-words showing up. And Jax is like, wait, he's the father of my children. Damon's like, let me come with you. And Jax is like, no, I'll call you later. And, Damon doesn't seem to understand the optics of him showing up and saying, hi, kids, or maybe he does. He's trying to push the relationship with him and Jax further along than she's ready to commit to, or even make it that serious yet, because she still has not figured out what the hell she wants. Does she want to be with Damon? Does she want to be with Lewis and be reconciled and move back together? Does she just want to let them both go and find somebody new? She does not know really. I think she does know what she wants, and then she doesn't know what she wants. But but it's like, it's not about you, Prison Bay. But it's about the kids, among other things. Like Jax. She's still not making a decision on what she wants, but she's gonna have to figure it out, because the stuff is about to hit the pan. Because later on in this episode, Will stops by her house, and he's like, I got fired from the security company, most likely because of your husband. Can you please give me a reference? She says, I'm sorry about that. And she says, I'll have my secretary or whatever write something up, and we can forward the reference to you. And as Will, aka Night Guard Bay, is getting ready to leave out, he opens the door and there's Damon. And Damon just comes in and he starts choking Will and dragging him up until a wall. And then he starts kicking him when Will hits the floor, saying that he's Jax's man. And Jack's like, no, I'm not. And then Damon leaves, all angry. And then Will, who's like trying to catch his breath on the floor, is like, you'll never hear from me again. Ever since I met you, things have been crazy. I mean, Will, you was once stalking Jax way after the point where it was clearly over, doing a Love Jones breakfast scene the next morning. I mean, but I think at this point, Will is most likely going to be out of the picture. We still got Damon and Lewis though. And later on in this episode, Jax goes to talk to Damon at the auto shop, and Damon's like, he says he was trying to protect Jax. And Jax is like, that was just crazy behavior. You were just erratic. You wasn't listening to reason. You didn't listen to anything I was saying. And Damon's like, have you ever thought about my feelings? And he keeps saying this thing of that Jax feels like he's not good enough, and I don't think Jax feels that way. I think Damon feels like he's not good enough for Jax, and Jax at this point does say that I'm too good for you. I'm too good for you. I think in a sense of maybe where she is in her life, um, but not necessarily that she's better than him. She's in a better position, for what she's worked for, her family, and different things like that. That doesn't necessarily make her like better than him. Circumstantially, I think she is better off than him. Yes, she is. She just got out of prison. Um, but not that she's too. She does say she's too good for him, but um, she, circumstantially, yes, it doesn't necessarily make her like better than him as like an overall human being. Nobody's perfect. People got flaws, um, you know, but either way, Damon's like, have you thought about my feelings? I'm in love with you. Give me another chance. I can't live without you. And, she kind of gives in to that. She kind of gives him a hug. And, and then we go to Lewis and Jax. They forget to pick up the kids from school. And Spencer's like, hey, we're going through this separation too. And it sucks. Y'all need to get y'all shit together. And mic drop. And, he gets into Lewis's car. And, Jax, she kind of breaks down a little bit. She's like, Lewis, we need to figure this separation out. And Lewis is like, I met with a divorce attorney after seeing you with, Damon the other day. I'm done. And, she's like, you're following me? He's like, don't worry about how I know. And this is finally, too, where you see reality setting in to Jax, like, you know, where she sees that, she could lose Lewis. And then she kind of, she realizes that she needs to figure it out. She needs to figure out what does she want. He's like, Lewis is like, he was like, shit it out or let it go or something like that. Either cut the crap and we work on our marriage, or we don't, and you pick whoever the hell that dude is. But I'm not gonna be a babysitter for your dates, your coffee dates with Damon, even though he doesn't know the guy is Damon. But for whoever this guy is, as far as Lewis knows. And later on in the episode, now Jax is the one who wants to talk to Lewis, but he doesn't want to because he's like, I've been trying to talk to you for the last 6 months, the last 7 episodes, and you were too busy, you couldn't be bothered, you couldn't make time for me, but you was making time for Damon, blowing your back out and going to the beach and all these other different things. She does say that Damon is out of the picture, but that's not really true. But now, Lewis needs time. Now Lewis is the one that needs time to decide what he wants, because he's kind of fed up. And then the episode ends up ending with Jax calling Rich, saying she knows who killed Kalisha. And at the end of the day, Jax she must have that like punani that they were talking about in Poetic Justice, because these men have been losing their ever-loving minds over Jax. You got Braden shooting his drunken shot at her, and she's like, no, ho, I am not interested. She goes to see how he is after the defense case, and she is not interested at all. She's going through her mind of all the incidences with Paul. Um, Damon just lost his mind when he saw Will, and the show compares his behavior to that of Paul's drinking behavior. And, how Jax, told her mom she's there for her. And then also telling Damon, I'm here for you, hopefully as a friend, maybe. But it's not a good idea if she wants to stay married. There's no way in hell Lewis is going to be okay with Jax being friends with Damon, especially when he knows that, especially if he knows, how, what their what their relationship, how it began, how it started, how long, that whole history. Um, you know, I don't really think she can necessarily be friends with Damon. Um, I don't even know if what they even have is necessarily healthy. Um, he's not Damon isn't an alcoholic, but he does have he has erratic, kind of irrational, anger minded behavior. He just kind of lashes out. So does she want that around her kids? Like, she has to really think about this. Again, she can't have a cake and eat it too. She really has to think about, does she really want? I don't think Damon is a bad person, but she really needs to think about what she wants, because she does tell Lewis that Damon is not in the picture, but that's not true. In that moment when he was crying and saying he loves her, she should have said, I understand. You can't let me go, but you got to let me go. I have to, our time is over. Our time is past. I need to focus on my family and my relationship with Lewis. Uh, you know, it doesn't seem like we're meant to be. If we are meant to be, then we'll come back at a different time. Maybe another 10, 15, 20 years from now. maybe something happens, I don't know, and then they come back together. If it's meant to be, it'll be like. But if she really wants to work it out with Lewis, that there's no way that that's going to end well with her still trying to keep Damon in the fold. They both need to get a clean break of each other and move the hell on. He's still on parole, so he probably has to stay in that area at least until his parole is up. So, they may still bump into each other here and there, but like as far as doing it on purpose, like no. Um, and the whole thing with Mama Lou and Paul, I'm just like, she couldn't have found some other man. I just didn't understand it, and I might have even said it on the review. When she became older, and Paul's like, it's been 10 years, blah blah blah, like And Jax is a lawyer too. She probably, I don't know if she ever bothered. She could probably look to see if Paul had any, past, criminal record or history of maybe some cases of maybe doing it to other kids, or if he has anything like that, if he has some kind of criminal record of, being a pedophile or a child molester or anything like that. Maybe to get some clarity, But yeah, I don't know, like Mama Lou couldn't find somebody else in 10 years. You couldn't find some other man. Yeah, you love Paul, but at the expense of the relationship with your daughter. And that stuff is weird. It was creepy. You can't really defend that. Luckily, I don't know if even luck is the word, but at least he didn't do anything more than that. But it still had an effect on her. It still affected her either way. But luckily he didn't, do more than just that. And then the question, I'm assuming we're going to find out, because there's only 9 episodes for this season. So next week is the last episode of the season. So I'm assuming we're going to find out who the heck is the person that, has broken into her house and tied her up. At this point, who is this person in the black mask? It most likely may be Kalicia's killer, which I don't know. It could. I feel like it's Theo, and they did have her. It looks like she did get the test results of that fingerprint, but they didn't follow through with it, or they didn't show her reading the results or calling anybody out. So I'm not even sure what's going on with that. But either way, she ends the episode since she knows who the killer is. So maybe it'll be, Kalicia's killer that, is the one that breaks in and ties her up and is in the black mask. Maybe it's Damon. Maybe it could still possibly be Will. I don't think Will wants anything to do with it now. He won't be following her anymore, or stalking Jackson anymore. Or maybe it's someone else that we haven't necessarily seen. But either way, let me know you all's thoughts. This is a lot longer than I wanted it to be. There was so much stuff going on in this episode, trying to review it properly. Hopefully I didn't overtalk your ears out, but either way, if you like this review, hit the like button. If you got any comments, comment below. Thank you to all the subscribers, but if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. People are watching these videos, but they are not subscribing after watching said video or whatever amount of time you watch it. Either way, subscribe please, and check out the other videos, when you get a chance. Other than that, bye bye.